Hey folks, this is Steve. I had quite a fun time going to Total Wine yesterday. I thought I'd share my experience. It was kind of a hoot. Everybody remembers back in the day when you were a kid playing red light, green light, or Simon Says. Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah, those were fun games. Well, we got to do that a little bit at Total Wine yesterday. Um, like everybody else, who's been homebound for the last 6 weeks. I've kind of gone through my beer and wine stash, so I had to go get some yesterday. And I got to Total Wine about 10 o'clock in the morning, right when they were opening. And there was already a pretty good crowd gathered out there. I guess the alcohol business and the pot sales are doing pretty good in this lockdown. Um, and no surprise there. So anyway, I go in the store and I get my 6 bottles of wine, the pick six things, you get a discount, and I get a couple 6 packs of beer, and I'm ready to check out, and there's already a pretty good line, and there's this big guy in front of me. He looked kind of like a biker dude, about 6'4", and he had 2 bottles of something in his hands, and they have these red lines taped out on the floor every 6 feet up to the cashier and up to the checkout. And this guy's in front of me, and he finally gets to move forward, and he puts his bottles on the conveyor belt, and I move forward, and everybody behind me, there's probably 4 or 5 people behind me going down the aisle, moves up to their next red line, and then the cashier tells this guy, now, get back behind the red line. And he looks around. She says, I can't move forward until you move back behind the red line. And she's actually at the back wall where all the boxes are stacked up, probably about 20 feet from the register. There's a big plexiglass screen at the register. And you have to put your stuff around the screen onto the conveyor belt. So he kind of looks at her and he starts to move back. So I move back and everybody behind me moves back. And then she moves forward and rings up his 2 bottles. And she says that, going to be cash or card. And he's got cash ready to go. So he moves forward and she says, wait till I move back. And she moves back to the wall. He moves forward and she says, just put your cash on the counter. He puts his cash on the counter and then she says, now you move back to the red line, please, sir. And he starts moving back to the red line. Of course, I've been creeping up, so I got to move back. And she comes forward and runs his cash through the cash register and prints out a receipt. And then puts the receipt and his change in a little pile. Then she moves back to the wall, and now he can move forward and get his 2 bottles of booze and a bag and his change and his receipt. So I move up with my cart. I've got a cart. He didn't have a cart. I have a cart. I move my cart forward to the conveyor belt, and I start unloading my cart onto the conveyor belt. And I get it about half unloaded, and I hear this, stop, sir. Put your items back in your cart. Do not unload your cart. She's pretty much barking orders. So I'm like, I better obey this lady. So I look at her. I say, well, why didn't you tell me that before I started unloading? She said, sorry, sir, I didn't see you. She was distracted, obviously, with something else going on. So I start putting the stuff back in my cart. And she just said, now push your cart forward. So I push my cart forward. And she says, now move back to the red line. And I turn around and look, and people had already moved up to my red line, and so I kind of look at them, and we all have to move back to our previous red lines in the line, right? So I'm like, okay, this is getting fun. So I move back to my line. She moves forward and then starts ringing up my stuff, and I wanted to make sure I got the pick six and everything was discounted properly, because that's why you get 6 bottles of wine there. That's why you go there. You get the 10% discount. And then she asked me if I was paying cash or card. I said card. She says, now wait till I move back. She moves back to the wall, and I start moving forward, and I kind of started moving forward too quickly, and she glared at me again, and I kind of froze. And so finally I get up to the cash register. I put my card in, and I do the debit card thing, and I touch the keypad like everybody else in the store is touching the keypad. I didn't see anybody cleaning keypads. Of course, and all the cashiers and all the people working in the store are gloved up and masked up, right? And so she then tells me, when I'm done, to move back to the red line. So I look and people had moved up already to where I had been on the previous red line. So I got to back up, and all the other people got to back up. So she can come forward and ask me if I want a receipt. And, I said, yeah, I'd like a receipt. So she prints out a receipt and says, now wait till I move back before you move forward. And I'm like, okay. And so she moves back, and I'm kind of eyeing her. I'm starting to creep up. I think I'm irritating her now. And she gets back to the wall, and I move up, and I get my receipt, and I put stuff away. Put my receipt away and into my wallet, and I grab the cart. And here I'm thinking, she's got these gloves on where she touched the previous guy's money, she touched the previous guy's items, she touched the previous guy's receipt. She's touching the same customer stuff all through the line. She's not changing her gloves in between customers. I'm using a debit machine that who knows when the last time it was cleaned, right? But yet this is the policy this store is following to keep us safe. I was totally surprised that people in line weren't popping open their bottles and taking hits right there just to make it through the store. But that was my experience yesterday at the Total Whine at the Windermere area up there at the north side of Spokane. So just thought I'd share that, because if you're into playing red light, green light, or Simon Says, you're going to have a lot of fun in that store. And by the way, Mac and Jack's was only previously sold in kegs to bars and restaurants, best beer in the world, but you could only get it out of a keg. They now make cans. Take a look at this. These are entrepreneurs, right? They're not going bankrupt unless the governor makes them go bankrupt. They figured out how to put this beauty in a can. It's temporary only. Mac and Jack's African Amber. It's the best beer in the world. I highly recommend it. But go somewhere other than Total Whine to buy it. Bye.